Blessings, everyone. I want to thank Brother Melik again for letting me go first so I can take part in the effort to ensure that some children with special needs continue to get the kind of care that they deserve. Appreciate that, brother. We'll be in chapter 20 of Ezekiel. In the 7th year, on the 10th day of the 5th month. Now, as with anything in Scripture, when we're reading about a calendar date, we have to read it in context, because things like this get taken out of context all the time, and people say, well, it means this or it means that, and they're not really looking at the context. The context of this statement is the length of Ezekiel's prophecy. Okay, now some people will read it and say, oh, it's the length of the captivity, or it's the length of the reign of that particular king at the time, or any of these things. But if you read the context, as we have from chapter 1, verse 1, it's very clear that we're talking about that this is the 7th year and the 10th day of the 5th month of his prophecy. Okay, so we're now well into the time that he has been crying out to be at Yisrael, pleading with us, and yes, I say us, pleading with us to return our hearts to the covenant that our Creator gave to our ancestors. Was he pleading with us in this room? Yes and no. No, we were not physically there as people, but according to a biblical understanding, at the time that this happened, I was in my father's loins, and he was in his father's loins, and he was in his father's loins, all the way back to our ancestors who stood and heard this message. That's why on Pesach, we say to our children, when I was a slave in Mitzrayim, Yehovah Elohim set me free through the shedding of the blood of the Lamb. Certain elders of Yisrael came to inquire of Yehovah and sat down before me, and the word of Yehovah came to me. Okay, so they came to seek truth from the Creator, and it says that the word of the Creator came at their petition, but he came to Ezekiel, the word here being Mashiach in a precarnate form. O mortal, speak to the elders of Yisrael, and say to them, thus said Yehovah Elohim, have you come to inquire of me? As I live, I will not respond to your inquiry, declares Yehovah Elohim. He says, as sure as I exist, I'm not hearing you. That doesn't sound much like a loving God, does it? You're my chosen people, but as sure as I live, I'm not listening to you. Now, let's quantify this. Does everybody here know that I love my children? There's almost nothing I wouldn't do for my children. But you can ask my children, have I ever reached a point where I said, I'm not listening to any more of it, go to your room? We call him Abba, Father, for a reason, because that is our relationship with him. So when he says to us through our ancestors, as sure as I live, I'm not hearing you, he's saying that's where we as a people had come to at that point. He's told us to be quiet and go to our rooms. For the record, there's another time when he tells us to be quiet and go to our rooms. It's called Sukkot. It starts tomorrow night. Everybody's here. On the day I chose Yisrael, I gave my oath to the stock of Beit Yaakov. When I made myself known to them in the land of Mitzrayim, I gave my oath to them when I said, I, Yehovah, am your Elohim. That same day I swore to them to take them out of the land of Mitzrayim into a land flowing with milk and honey, a land which I had sought out for them, the fairest of all lands. You can see that he didn't just give us a land. He didn't just say, oh, as an afterthought, Yisrael, I'm giving you this little strip of ground. He gave us the choicest, fairest land, and that's hard to imagine now if you look at pictures of Israel now. It's a lot of it is desert. A lot of it doesn't look very hospitable. But in the time that he first gave it to us, it was called a wilderness because it had forested mountains and it had pastures for lambs and other livestock to graze on. It had flowing rivers, not just the Jordan and the Euphrates. And the main reason why that isn't that way now is because our people did not keep the Sabbath of years when the land was to rest and replenish itself. That refusal to keep that commandment is a large part, probably the key reason why our people ended up in the captivity that Ezekiel is prophesying here. And the reason I say that is because there were 70 times that the people had not kept the Sabbath of years and let the land rest, and the captivity was exactly 70 years. And Daniel tells us that he read from Yirmiyahu or Jeremiah, and he studied that text written about the same time as Ezekiel, prophesying the same thing. And he said he studied between studying that and studying the Torah. He knew that the time of the captivity would be 70 years, and that it would correlate to the failure to keep that commandment. I also said to them, cast away every one of you the detestable things that you are drawn to, and do not defile yourselves with the fetishes of Mitzrayim. I, Yehovah, am your Elohim. Because all those gods that you worshipped over there, leave them over there. You're coming to our new house. You've been in foster care for a little bit. I was letting somebody else take care of you mainly so you'd learn to respect me. So you'd learn to appreciate what I do for you. Come on back home. But they defied me and refused to listen to me. They did not cast away the detestable things they were drawn to, nor did they give up the fetishes of Mitzrayim. Then I resolved to pour out my fury upon them, to vent all my anger upon them there in the land of Mitzrayim. But I acted for the sake of my name, that it might not be profane in the sight of the nations among whom they were. For it was before their eyes that I made myself known to Yisrael to bring them out of the land of Mitzrayim. You know, sometimes we think, hey, we're the chosen people. We're special. He's special. Yes, he chose us from among all the peoples of the world. That's true. But nowhere in Scripture does it say that he only offered the covenant to Abraham. And Jewish tradition tells us that he offered it repeatedly to many men, and only Father Abraham accepted it. And that's why he became the father of the Jews, father of the chosen people. But when he does things for us, yes, he loves us, but he loves every person he ever made. When he does things special for us, it is not so much because we are special. It is because through us, he is showing who he is to the world. And if we get that flipped around and we think that he owes us something because we're Jews, shame on us. We owe him for allowing us that privilege. Let us never forget that. I brought them out of the land of Mitzrayim, and I led them into the wilderness. I gave them my laws and taught them my rules, by the pursuit of which a man shall live. Moreover, I gave them my Sabbaths to serve as a sign between me and them, that they may know that it is I, Yehovah, who sanctify them. Okay, why do we keep Shabbat? Do we keep Shabbat because we want a day off? I've been accused of that. You lazy Jew. You get a day off every week. 6 days you shall labor. Not 7. Well, that's Old Testament stuff. You can work any day you want to, any hour you want to. Be a German Protestant, right? You know, it's like saying be a Catholic because if you're Protestant, all you're doing is protesting Catholicism, wanting changes in it. We do not keep Shabbat because, it is what we want to do. Most of us, our flesh doesn't want to do it. Most of us, our flesh does not want us to stop or take that rest. Some people, on the other hand, want to stop and rest 6 days out of the week and work only on Saturday. I've seen that too. Work only on the Sabbath. We keep Shabbat so that we never forget who he is. It is a sign that he gave us between us and him. Just like mikvah is a sign between us and the world to say we're no longer of them, we're now of him. You see, most people these days, because there's not a standing temple, only get mikvahed once. Okay? I've been mikvahed twice. I'm probably the only person in here who's been mikvahed more than once. But Shabbat is every week and 7 special high days out of the year and an entire year out of 7. And how many times can we celebrate Shabbat in our lifetime so that we never forget who we belong to? Let us never take that for granted. But Beit Yisrael rebelled against me in the wilderness. They did not follow my laws, and they rejected my rules, by the pursuit of which a man shall live. Catch that? People say, oh, you can't live by the law. No, but by pursuing the law, you can live. It says right here. Everybody got that? Keeping the law doesn't save us. Pursuing the law, striving to keep the law, will bring us into a saving relationship with him simply through the fact that it teaches us who he is. And they grossly desecrated my Sabbaths. Then I thought to pour out my fury upon them in the wilderness and to make an end of them. But I acted for the sake of my name, that it might not be profaned in the sight of the nations before whose eyes I led them out. However, I swore to them in the wilderness that I would not bring them into the land flowing with milk and honey, the fairest of all lands, which I had assigned to them. Notice before he said he sought it out and gave it to us. Now he has assigned it to us. It is ours, period. For they had rejected my rules, disobeyed my laws, and desecrated my Sabbaths. Their hearts followed after their fetishes. But I had pity on them and did not destroy them. I did not make an end of them in the wilderness. Pity. Isn't that a sad thing? Is that the relationship any of us want to have with our Father? That he doesn't punish us out of pity? Or do we want to have the relationship where we please him so much that he can't help but show us love? That he can't help but give us affection? I warned their children in the wilderness, do not follow the practices of your fathers. Do not keep their ways, and do not defile yourselves with their fetishes. I, Yehovah, am your Elohim. Follow my laws and be careful to observe my rules and hallow my Sabbaths, that they may be a sign between me and you, that you may know that I, Yehovah, am your Elohim. But the children rebelled against me. They did not follow my laws and did not faithfully observe my rules, by the pursuit of which man shall live, but profaned my Sabbaths. Then I resolved to pour out my fury upon them, to vent all my anger upon them in the wilderness, but I held back my hand and acted for the sake of my name, that it might not be profaned in the sight of the nations before whose eyes I had led them out. Sometimes we get it in our heads that we're just such great people that he's just going to keep bestowing favors on us. It is possible for us to be so far off track that he's only sparing us so that other people see how good he is. That's a hard pill to swallow, but it's one we all need to. That's part of what Yom Kippur is, and that's part of what all the days of awe are supposed to be about, is a time to stop and meditate about that. How good are we? Really, we should say, how good are we not? Where have we come up short according to his, how he defines what is sin and righteousness? And if we're honest about it, none of us in this room are where we should be. Not one. I'll be the first to say I don't come close. But if we're not swallowing that pill now, it's going to be really hard to swallow it come Judgment Day. However, I swore to them in the wilderness that I would scatter them among the nations and disperse them through the lands, because they did not obey my rules, but rejected my laws, profaned my Sabbaths, and looked and longed to the fetishes of their fathers. That's where we are right now, folks. Scattered among the nations. There's exactly one person in this room whose Jewish lineage Israelite lineage I can't trace through the book of Jewish genealogies. One person. And yet every one of us is scattered among the nations. Why? Because we, not us personally, but we were there according to Jewish tradition. We as a people rejected his law. That's why we're scattered among the nations. Moreover, I gave them laws that were not good and rules by which they could not live. When they set aside every first issue of the womb, I defiled them by their very gifts, that I might render them desolate, that they might know that I am Yehovah. He says, you know what? You refuse to give me those. Give them to me. I'm going to make you give them to me. And then I'm going to destroy them, because you did not give them to me of the right heart. So they mean nothing. Where our hearts are is far more important than how exactly we manage to keep the Torah. Now, O mortal, speak to Beit Yisrael and say to them, thus said Yehovah Elohim, by this too your fathers affronted me and committed trespass against me, when I brought them to the land that I had sworn to give them. And they saw any high hill or any leafy tree, they slaughtered their sacrifices there and presented their offensive offerings there. There they produced their pleasing odors and poured out their libations. Then I said to them, what is this shrine which you visit? Therefore such a shrine is called Bama to this day. Now say to Beit Yisrael. Thus said Yehovah Elohim, if you defile yourselves as your fathers did and go astray after their detestable things, and if to this day, very day, you defile yourselves in the presentation of your gifts by making your children pass through the fire to all your fetishes, shall I respond to your inquiry, O Beit Yisrael? See, the custom in that land at that time was they would have a shrine altar and they would have a statue of their supposed deity. And inside was basically an oven, and they would heat the oven up so hot that no one could possibly live through it, and they would pass their child through it. And today, millions of people do the same thing. It's very similar. We call it abortion. They just kill the child before they throw it in the incinerator. Yeah. This fetish is still being practiced today. They just changed the order of things. As I live, declares Yehovah Elohim, I will not respond to you, and what you have in mind shall never come to pass when you say, we will be like the nations, like the families of the lands, worshiping wood and stone. As I live, declares Yehovah Elohim, I will reign over you with a strong hand, and with an outstretched arm, and with overflowing fury. With a strong hand and an outstretched arm and overflowing fury, I will bring you out from the peoples and gather you from the lands where you are scattered, and I will bring you into the wilderness of the peoples, and there I will enter into judgment with you face to face. Can we say Holocaust, 1930s and 40s? As I enter into judgment with your fathers in the wilderness in the land of Mitzrayim, so will I enter into judgment with you, declares Yehovah Elohim. I will make you pass under the shepherd's staff, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant. I will remove from you those who rebel and transgress against me. I will take them out of the countries where they sojourn, but they shall not enter the land of Yisrael. Then you shall know that I am Yehovah. So he says, there's a time coming when I'm going to gather you from the four winds, and that started in 1948. We got to go home. Many did. Processes of Aliyah is still going on every day. But he says there's going to be a time when he comes and walks through the field, basically, of Yisrael, if we really are his wheat field, and he's going to walk through it, and he's going to say, these are my good grains, and these are the weeds, and he's going to separate out, so that just because you're biologically Yisrael does not mean that you have a place in the kingdom. As for you, O Beit Yisrael, thus said Yehovah Elohim, go every one of you and worship his fetishes and continue. If you will not obey me, but do not profane my holy name anymore with your idolatrous gifts. In other words, if you want to do that thing you're doing, go ahead and do it, but don't say you belong to me. You know, people, when they read the commandment not to take his name in vain, they think it's by saying the word God with another word after it. That's not what that means. I'm not saying we should say that, but that's not what it means. Those Hebrew words literally mean to take something for ourselves and to do it vainly, without meaning. He's saying, don't come stand under my banner of Shabbat and then go out and pray to stone. Don't say that you are faithful to me and be out cheating on your wife. Because my word plainly says that to be the minister of the congregation, you must be the husband of one wife. He's saying, do not say that you belong to me and tell that to the world and then behave like the world. Because when you do that, your purpose being to show them, the purpose for you to even exist is to show them my glory. Then the only way I still have to show them my glory is to punish you, and they'll see how great I am. It's not his will. His perfect will is that we'll do his will. His permissive will is that he can use us as an example. Ask my younger children if they've ever learned from my oldest child's mistakes. They see him try something, or the younger sisters see Leah try something, and they get punished. And those younger ones are like, oh, not trying that. We are the oldest child. He calls Yisrael his firstborn. That's why he says that. Because either he will dote on us as his favorite, which he wants to, or he'll punish us as an example to the younger children in the house. For only on my holy mountain, on the lofty mount of Yisrael, declares Yehovah Elohim, there in the land, the entirety of Beit Yisrael, all of it must worship me. You know, I've heard scholars debate this back and forth, and there's no way there's too many Jewish people now. They can't all really be Jewish because they couldn't all stand on the holy mountain at one time. You know, it doesn't say that all those people are going to be living there. How many times has the Jewish population been decimated almost out of existence and come back? And we don't know on that last great day how many of us will still be living, because many will have been martyred for our beliefs. But he will call all that are still living together to the holy mountain on one day to give worship. There I will accept them, and there I will take note of your contributions and the choicest offerings of all your sacred things. When I bring you out from the peoples and gather you from the lands in which you are scattered, I will scatter you as a pleasing odor, and I will be sanctified through you in the sight of the nations. Then, when I have brought you to the land of Yisrael, to the country that I swore to give to your fathers, you shall know that I am Yehovah. There you will recall your ways and all the acts by which you defiled yourselves, and you will loathe yourselves for all the evils that you committed. Then, O Beit Yisrael, you shall know that I am Yehovah when I deal with you for my name's sake, not in accordance with your evil ways and corrupt acts, declares Yehovah Elohim. And isn't that a blessing to read? That on the last day, he will choose to deal with us, not in punishment, but in grace. And after everything we just read in that chapter and everything we all know that we've done wrong in our lives, is it not an amazing thing to think that there is a love so great as that? That he will look at each one of us and he'll say, Fischel. I believe he'll call me Fischel. I don't think he'll call me by a Greek name. He'll say, Fischel ben Gedalia. You screwed up, bud, but I love you. Come home. Do we have a midrash? Yes, sir.
You said, in verse 21, you said, I will accept you as a pleasing odor. That's all.
Do what?
Is it where it says, when I bring you out from peoples and gather you from lands in which you are scattered, I will accept you as a pleasing odor. You said scattered.
Okay, are there any questions? No questions?